Hello and welcome. Let's take a look at our top story. It looks like all is not going well for Kenya. Along with public anger against the high cost of living and political turmoil within the William Ruto government, the East African country is also facing opposition against its first nuclear power plant. Dozens of residents, activists and environmentalists rallied in Kenya's Kilifi against the proposal to build the country's first nuclear power plant near the coastal town. The controversial plant in the Kilifi County is located around 500 kilometers from the capital, Nairobi. This county is Kenya's top coastal tourist hub. It is renowned for its pristine sandy beaches and is one of the best spots for boating and snorkeling around coral reefs. The county is also popular for bird watching in the Arabuko-Sokoke forest, a significant natural habitat for the conservation of rare and endangered species, which is also on the tentative list of UNESCO World Heritage Sites. The Kenyan government says the construction of the major plant will begin in 2027, but local residents are up in arms against it. They don't want the project to go through. And here's why. Kenyans have been worried about the fact that the government's plan, which was first proposed last year, would have several negative impacts on local people and the environment. Human rights groups and environmentalists have led demonstrations in Kilifi and have even handed the county governor a petition opposing the construction of the plant. The protesters raised anti-nuclear slogans. Many of them also carried placards that read, "Sitaki nuclear," Swahili for "I don't want nuclear." The protesters believe the negative effects of building the plant outweigh the positive ones.
We say that this project has a lot of negative effects. There will be malformed children born out of this place. Fish will die, and our forest Arabuko-Sokoke, which is known to harbor birds from abroad, will be lost, and the nuclear plant will cause us more harm than the benefits.
Our main source of income here is ecotourism. We depend on the environment. We host the only East African coastal forests. We host the Watamu Marine Park. We host the largest mangrove plantation in Kenya. We do not want nuclear to come and mess up our ecosystem.
The protesters have also put up demands. They want the government to involve and inform the locals of decisions regarding the nuclear plant. Secondly, they want the government to not proceed with fixing any site for the plant before laws and adequate safeguards are in place. Thirdly, the residents are seeking more scrutiny of the project. They want to know as to how the radioactive waste would be managed, among other things from the plant. Some activists have also filed petitions and lawsuits raising concerns over risks the plant might have to tourism in the event of a nuclear spill. The Kenya Anti-Nuclear Alliance has also urged the government to focus more on renewable energy sources instead.
100 billion can generate more than 2,000 megawatts. Why are we using it to generate only 1,000 for only 60 years and then it's finished? While we have renewables that can last a lifetime for generations to come. We are here to oppose. We do not want the Kilifi County government to be loaded with the burden of dealing with nuclear waste.
The government says the plant is crucial. It is expected to generate 1,000 megawatts of power when it begins its operations. The cost of construction of the plant is expected to be at 500 billion Kenyan shillings, or $3.8 billion. The project is expected to begin in 2027 and be completed by the year 2034. The government says the project is a part of Kenya's long-term strategy to reduce its reliance on hydroelectric and fossil fuel energy sources. But how does the William Ruto government plan to deal with the opposition to the plant? Will it engage with the protesters? Well, for now, they have been trying to ease their concerns with promises. The government says that the plant not just aims to increase Kenya's energy capacity and to reduce carbon emissions, but will also create new job opportunities for people. And Kenya's Nuclear Power and Energy Agency has also dismissed claims by locals and environmentalists that the proposed nuclear power plant will cause any harm in the area. The authorities say that the construction would not begin for years and that the environmental laws were under consideration. Will the government be able to pacify its citizens and address their concerns? Or will it be forced once again to bow to their demands and alter its plans for the nuclear power plant? Now, to talk more on this, we have with us Sophia Rajab, who is a lawyer, joining us live from Kilifi County, the site of the proposed nuclear power plant in Kenya. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Sophia, what is the primary objection to the nuclear plant proposal, and what are your concerns regarding its impact on human and animal life in the area and the environment?
I think the first concern is the environment, because there are very, very credible resources that we have been reading and research that has been done insofar as the effect on the increase of temperature. We're talking about third generation nuclear reactors here, but rely on water for its cooling system. So in the span of the life of a nuclear power plant, we're talking 40 to 60 years, the temperature of the ocean will definitely go up. And we know that temperature is an important ecological parameter for aquatic life. So the fish will be dead, just to put it simply. And that creates an avalanche of issues that affect the environment, affect aquatic life, affect the entire ecosystem. I mean, the thing is this proposal, the proposed site is in the middle, it's smack in the middle of a UNESCO biosphere. As you said, from Arabuko Sokoke Forest to the Maida Creek to the Watamu Marine Park, which is actually a protected area. So you would wonder why the government, in its own protected area, would want to launch a nuclear power plant there. There's serious concerns with regard to the environment. And that, in turn, affects livelihoods, because we rely on tourism as a big economic industry for us in the coast. And so if we lose the marine park, if we lose the corals, if we lose the mangroves, then we don't have an industry, and that will mean that people's livelihoods will be affected. The plant is proposed right across from the Watamu hotel strip, so tourism will be lost, and that's also another key issue that we have.
Yes, Sophia, on that, what are the key demands of the activists?
I think one key demand is for the government to halt any plans for this nuclear power plant. As you said, they are pushing with the 2027 date to start the plant, which is absolutely illogical. It doesn't make sense. We haven't done enough public participation. We haven't done enough public scrutiny of these documents that the government is signing. We know the government has signed several MOUs with different countries, with different nations, but those MOUs have not been available to the public. So we actually don't know what the government is signing. So the first thing is for the government to halt all and any of these agreements until there is public participation, until people are told what their plans are after they've evicted communities from the area, until we're told what the mitigation plans are. So far, the government has also not signed critical conventions: the Convention on Civil Liability for Nuclear Damage, the Convention on Compensation for Nuclear Damage, the Convention on Spent Fuel Management and Radioactive Waste. The government has not signed any of the critical conventions on nuclear energy. So you even wonder, how is it possible for the country to go forward with this project without having taken those steps?
And what are the social and the economic implications, you did touch on it earlier, of this nuclear plant for local communities? And why has there been such strong opposition from both environmental groups and the coastal residents?
This resistance has been going on for years. And every time there is opposition to this project by the locals, the government is not taking it seriously. As I said, if we lose the tourism industry, which is one of the biggest employers, then we've lost people's livelihoods. That means people cannot work, people cannot feed their families, people cannot pay rent, and you actually cannot live. So people's livelihoods will be lost. We're talking about the immediate employees of the hotel industry, but then also other secondary jobs, for example, fishermen, touring companies, like everybody in that community will essentially have lost their job and their main means of livelihoods. And that's a problem for us, because even as you want to evict this community from that area, where are they going to go? What jobs are they going to do? The government is telling us that this nuclear power plant is going to create 2,000 jobs. But which 2,000 jobs? Those 2,000 jobs are going to essentially eliminate thousands more jobs of people who are actually employed. And even within those 2,000 jobs, those are the jobs within the nuclear industry that we don't have the capacity to actually occupy. So it's a fallacy to think that you're going to create 2,000 jobs that we actually are not qualified for, because not many people, because of historical injustices against this community, have not got an education, have not been able to access these opportunities. So those 2,000 jobs are not for the local community. They're going to be for other people who are not local. So that's why we're resisting, because we're not being told really what the specific plans with regard to eviction, relocation, job security. And another thing that is very important is nuclear safety.
Yes.
We've talked about the issue of the lack of preparedness as well that Kenya has in terms of being able to deal with a nuclear fallout. Our government cannot even handle emergencies from floods. How can we handle a nuclear emergency? And again, we are in the Kenyan coast.
Yes.
And if you look at our history in the Kenyan coast, we also have problems of security. So the issue of nuclear proliferation is another issue that we need to talk about, and that the government hasn't really explained to us how they're going to ensure that there are mitigation measures to no nuclear proliferation, because we have terrorism.
Right.
We've had terrorist attacks before. And so there's uranium.
Yes, Sophia, yes.
Yes, that's really going to affect the security of the people around this area. So we have very, very big problems with the pace in which the government is going, without ensuring that the blocks are taken care of and addressed.
Mm. Yes. And has the government proposed any measures to ensure safety and sustainability of the nuclear plant, particularly in light of potential natural disasters like floods, as an example?
Right, and I'd remind you, Alyson, and maybe many of your viewers might not know this or remember this, is that we faced a tsunami here in the coast 20 years ago, right? Which had devastating effects that lasted very long. So if we compare ourselves with Japan and the accident that happened in their nuclear power plant, we will have no means whatsoever, and I can say that with no fear or favor, that our county, Kilifi County, and by extension, the Kenyan government does not have the capacity to handle a nuclear accident, whether it is a minor accident or a major accident.
Yes.
We do not have the capacity. We do not have the know-how. We do not have the facilities to be able to manage a nuclear fallout. And before we get into establishing a nuclear plant, perhaps it's important for us to make sure that we can handle accidents. Right now, our hospitals don't even have medicine. You understand? So it's a tall order for the government to tell us, we'll handle it when we get there. No, we don't want to handle it when we get there. We want to handle it now. And that is the demand that we're making of this government, is to halt everything until this project has undergone enough public scrutiny and all of our concerns are actually addressed.
Yeah. And Sophia, if not this project, how can Kenya align with global trends towards renewable energy?
We already have renewables in our energy mix. We have invested heavily in solar, in geothermal, in hydro, and in wind. We have made so many investments in renewables. And right now, the question really is, why not invest more in renewable energy? If we already have that in place, than to take the more expensive option of nuclear energy. It really doesn't make sense. And at the expense of people, at the expense of the environment, at the expense of livelihoods. So that is what we're calling on the government to make more investments in renewables rather than to take this more expensive route of nuclear energy.
Right. Sophia, thank you very much for being with us on Firstpost Africa. Very grateful for your insights and opinions and suggestions there.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Firstpost decodes the U.S. election. Explains how America chooses its president. Your primer on the race to the White House. Everything you need to know about how America votes and its global implications. U.S. Election Explained. Every Monday and Thursday only on Firstpost.